life hadn't been easy for Armin. As a single father, he carried the weight of responsibilities that most men his age couldn't imagine. Raising his little daughter, Aisha, all on his own was never part of the plan, but fate had chosen this path for him. And though the nights were long and the struggles endless, Armin never once complained, because his daughter was his entire world. Every morning, he would wake up before the sun, quietly preparing breakfast just the way Aisha liked. He would braid her hair clumsily, pack her school bag, and walk her to the bus stop with a smile that masked his exhaustion. Aisha, with her big brown eyes and endless laughter, was the reason Armin kept going. She was not just his daughter, she was his best friend, his reason to breathe, and the light in his darkest days. The two of them had built a little world of their own. On weekends, they would go to the park, chasing kites in the sky and sharing ice cream, even if the money was tight. In the evenings, Armin would help her with homework, pretending to be strict, though inside he was proud of how smart she was. And every night, before she fell asleep, Aisha would whisper, "Papa, you're my hero." Those words were more powerful than any wealth or luxury. To the world, Armin was just another tired man in worn-out clothes. But in his daughter's eyes, he was everything. And that was enough. Behind closed doors, though, Armin often worried. Could he protect her from the harshness of life? Could he give her the future she deserved? He carried guilt for the things she didn't have: the big house, the expensive toys, the kind of life other children enjoyed. Yet, Aisha never complained. All she wanted was her father's love, and in return, she gave him more joy than he thought possible. Their bond was unshakable. Together, they laughed, they dreamed, and they survived. Armin believed nothing in the world could ever break the little paradise they had built with love. But sometimes, fate has plans we can't see coming. The story of their unbreakable bond was only the beginning. A chapter of happiness that would soon give way to something darker, something that would test Armin in ways he never imagined. For now, though, in this moment, life was beautiful. A father and his daughter, hand in hand, unaware of the storm that was slowly approaching their world. The morning of that fateful day began just like any other. The sky was clear, the streets were alive with the sound of children heading to school, and Armin, as always, was walking Aisha to the bus stop. She held his hand tightly, swinging it back and forth, her laughter filling the air. To anyone watching, they looked like the happiest father and daughter in the world. "Papa, don't forget. Today I have a drawing competition," Aisha reminded him excitedly, her small backpack bouncing on her shoulders. Armin smiled. "Of course, my princess. And I already know you'll win, because no one can draw like you." Her cheeks turned red with pride as she giggled. He kissed the top of her head before the bus arrived. As she climbed on, she leaned out of the window and shouted, "Bye, Papa. I love you." Those words, they would echo in his heart forever. The hours passed slowly. Armin went to work, trying to focus, but he kept checking the time, eager to hear from Aisha after her competition. But then everything changed. In the middle of the afternoon, his phone rang. At first, he thought it was Aisha calling to tell him the results, but the voice on the other end was cold, unfamiliar, and trembling. It was the hospital. There had been an accident. His hands shook as the phone nearly slipped from his grip. "What do you mean? My daughter? No, no, please, you must be mistaken." His heart pounded as he rushed out of work, every step heavy with fear. The world blurred as he raced to the hospital, desperate, praying, begging. "God, please, not her. Take everything from me, but not her." When he finally arrived, the sight of doctors rushing around, the smell of antiseptic, and the silence of the waiting room told him everything his heart already feared. Aisha, his little princess, was gone. The accident had been sudden. A reckless driver, a moment of chaos on the road, and in an instant, the light of his life had been stolen. Armin collapsed to the ground, his cries echoing through the hallways. People looked on, some with pity, others with tears, but none could feel the pain tearing through his soul. He clutched her schoolbag, still warm with her presence, and whispered through broken sobs, "Papa promised to protect you, and I failed." That day, Armin's world shattered. The laughter, the dreams, the promises, all gone in the blink of an eye. And nothing would ever be the same again. The house felt unbearably silent. Where once it echoed with laughter, songs, and the sound of tiny footsteps running from room to room, now it stood like an empty shell. Armin sat alone in the corner of Aisha's bedroom, clutching her favorite teddy bear to his chest. The faint scent of her still lingered on the pillow, and it broke him all over again. Every object in the room whispered her name. Her crayons scattered on the desk, half-finished drawings taped to the wall, the tiny shoes by the door that would never be worn again, all of it was a cruel reminder of the life she should have lived. At night, Armin could no longer sleep. His mind replayed every moment, her laughter in the park, her voice calling him Papa, her small hand gripping his. Each memory was a blessing and a curse, giving him comfort but tearing him apart at the same time. Sometimes, he caught himself setting the dinner table for two before realizing there would only ever be one plate now. Other times, he would wake up and instinctively walk toward her room, only to remember she would never come running into his arms again. Grief consumed him like a shadow. People told him time would heal, but time only deepened the emptiness. Friends and neighbors offered words of comfort, but none could fill the hollow place in his heart. Some told him to be strong, but how could a father be strong when the very reason for his strength was gone? On some evenings, Armin sat by the window, staring at the swing in the yard swaying with the wind. He remembered pushing her higher and higher, her giggles echoing like music. Now, the silence screamed louder than any sound ever could. The world kept moving forward, but Armin remained stuck in the moment he lost her. He went to work, he walked the same streets, but he was just a shadow of himself. Nothing tasted the same, nothing looked the same. Life had lost its colors. Yet even in the depths of his despair, one thing gave him strength, the memories of her love. Her words, "Papa, you're my hero," echoed in his soul. Perhaps she was gone, but her love was eternal, woven into every breath he took. And though the pain was unbearable, he knew he had to keep going, not for himself, but for her memory. Because love, even in loss, never truly dies. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, yet for Armin, time felt frozen. Every morning, he forced himself out of bed, not because he wanted to, but because life demanded it. Work, bills, survival, none of it mattered anymore, but he went through the motions like a machine. Inside, he was empty. The world outside carried on as if nothing had happened. Children still played in the streets, families still gathered at parks, and the sun still rose and set. But for Armin, every smiling child was a reminder of Aisha, every father holding his daughter's hand a painful echo of what he had lost. Loneliness wrapped around him like chains. He avoided gatherings, birthdays, and weddings. He could not bear the sight of joy when his own heart was buried under grief. Friends tried to reach out, some offering words of faith, others urging him to move on. But how could he move on from a piece of his soul? At work, he became distant. His colleagues noticed the hollow look in his eyes, the silence where once there had been warmth. He rarely spoke, and when he did, his voice carried the weight of someone broken. They pitied him, but no one truly understood. Nights were the hardest. He would sit on the floor with Aisha's schoolbag in his lap, going through her notebooks, tracing her handwriting with trembling fingers. Sometimes, he would whisper to the empty room, pretending she could still hear him. "How was school today, princess? Did you win the competition? Papa is still so proud of you." The silence that followed was unbearable. The grief also weighed on his body. He ate less, his health declined, and dark circles grew beneath his eyes. Yet he refused help, refused comfort. Deep down, he believed this suffering was his punishment for not protecting her. Still, somewhere in that darkness, a flicker of purpose remained. On some nights, he stood at her small memorial, flowers trembling in his hands, and whispered, "I'll keep living, Aisha. Not because I want to, but because you'd want me to. I won't let your memory fade." It was this fragile promise that kept him breathing. Even when the world felt cruel and unforgiving, the love of a daughter who once called him hero gave him the strength to endure. But the journey of healing was far from over. For Armin, the hardest part wasn't just living without her, it was learning to carry her love in a world that no longer had her. Seasons changed, but Armin's heart still carried the weight of loss. Yet slowly, in the quiet spaces of his grief, something began to shift. The raw wound of losing Aisha did not close, but it began to scar, allowing him to breathe again without breaking each time. One evening, as he sat at her memorial with fresh flowers in hand, he noticed the sunset painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. For the first time since that tragic day, he didn't see it as just another reminder of endings, but as a sign of beauty still existing in the world. He whispered softly, "Aisha, maybe this is your way of telling me you're still here." It was then Arman realized that though she was gone from his sight, she would never be gone from his heart. Her laughter, her drawings, her words, "Papa, you're my hero," these were not lost. They lived within him, guiding him, shaping him. Determined to honor her memory, he began to do small things in her name. He donated her books to children who couldn't afford schooling, believing that Aisha's love for learning should inspire others. He planted a small tree in their yard, watching it grow as a symbol of her life continuing through nature. Every leaf, every branch felt like her spirit reaching out to him. Neighbors noticed the change. The man once drowning in sorrow was now carrying his pain with quiet dignity. He still grieved, he still cried at night, but his tears no longer came from despair alone, they carried love, remembrance, and the will to keep her spirit alive. On what would have been her birthday, Arman lit a candle by her photograph and spoke with a steady voice. "Princess, I couldn't protect you from fate, but I will protect your memory. Every good I do, every smile I give, will be for you. You will never be forgotten, not as long as I live." The world had taken his daughter, but it could not take away the love between them. That bond was eternal. Arman learned that healing did not mean forgetting, it meant living in a way that kept her with him, always. Though his heart remained scarred, it also grew stronger, carrying the weight of love and loss together. And so, the single dad who once thought his life had ended found a new beginning, living not just for himself, but forever for his daughter's memory.